My radio audience is the most diverse audience of any show in the city. And unlike some shows who ban certain callers because they're liberal and just have ditto heads and, people call in to say, hey, great job and we love you, we have a lot of folks that call in who disagree with me. And I would say a good 40% of the callers are liberal. Yes. And for talk radio, that is very unusual.
And I would like
but that also makes good radio.
I think so.
Yeah.
Michael, I think so.
And one of our other friends who also has a radio show, we've talked about this issue. He's been a guest here too, and said, "Hey, that's what makes it lively, and that's what gets people interested in."
Right.
And I would want our people to know that you are very respectful of the people with whom you may not agree.
Well, and the thing about it is, they're taking the time to either be a guest or to call in. I'm not going to treat them rudely and hang up on them. Some folks do it for effect and think it's sort of
it's show
funny.
It's show business.
And
yes.
I just don't think that's. I wasn't brought up that way.
So when you have guests or topics on which you have a specific viewpoint, you still get callers who don't agree with you.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have a very well-known caller who goes by the handle the Flaming Liberal. And I would say that there is not a day that goes by that he doesn't register his contrarian opinion,
all right,
which is interesting.
All right, now we're talking about your radio show. How about your television show, which of course is not a call-in show, but you must get some reactions and know something about how it's being received. And of course it is being aired on a TV channel that's owned by the Archdiocese. Right,
which is unusual because I don't know how many stations across the nation are owned by
it's the only one.
A Catholic order. But it's, the Will Woods Foundation, which is a Catholic organization, and obviously they have a lot of Catholic programming on there, which is, again, unusual. You don't see that on a lot of stations. But the good thing about the folks there is when we do talk about issues, they encourage me to have the freedom to talk about whatever I want. They're not saying you have to follow Catholic teaching. They're not saying you have to have priests on or any kinds of religious stipulations.
And they don't in any way edit your program?
My show has never been edited, and I'm proud to say that they give me freedom to express what I think needs to be expressed. What is your impression about who that audience is for the TV program? I'll tell you, every day people come up and say they watch it, black folks, white folks, men and women. I think we have a very diverse group. And what's interesting, I think a lot of people might listen to my radio show but not know about the TV show, or vice versa. Might watch the TV show but never heard the radio show. Yeah. So it's a different audience. There's some people that watch and listen, but some are just followers of one of the other.
Now our vast audience knows about both of your shows.
Well, I guess you have an educated audience there.
There's also the commentary you do on Channel 26, and I just wanted to mention that because it wasn't mentioned in the bio piece, and also give you some points there, because I think when you're doing that, you're coming on as a political expert rather than a person with an opinion, and I think you do a very good job of giving them analysis without. People may know where you stand, but you still give them a straight analysis.
That's a role.
Very pleased with that,
Michael. Thank you. That I have to be right down the middle as far as a very objective analysis as to what the political landscape is going to be, and I think they've been pleased with what I've been able to provide for them. I first started working in campaigns when I was 11 years old, so it's been over 3.5 decades of working in campaigns.
Were you a Republican at 11?
I was I was tilting toward Republican, but living in Orleans Parish, you didn't have a lot of Republicans, so I got involved in some Democrat campaigns. So it's been a mixture, and I've supported a lot of Democrats over the years. But
Jeff, a couple of times or a few times that I have been on either your radio or TV show, the issues were primarily It's separation of church and state issues, which is a constitutional question. And recently, we talked about the lawsuit that was filed to try to prevent the inauguration ceremonies from violating the Constitution in two different ways. And of course, that case went before a single federal judge in Washington, D.C., who did not rule on the constitutional question. His ruling, as I understood it, he said that and our group was one of the plaintiffs. He said that the plaintiffs hadn't evidence that they had been injured, that they would be injured by this taking place. So there was no ruling regarding whether or not it was constitutional. But in other instances, you and I have talked about matters that, in our opinion, violated the state-church separation. And on the last show, and then the question is, what does the Constitution say about that? And the First Amendment is not really precise. So what it really depends upon is what the courts decided that the writers of the Constitution, the fathers of the country, the founders, what their intent was.
And that is problematic.
That is problematic.
We weren't there back then.
We were
no
not.
Video of them.
We were not. However, right. I have here a book called 2,000 Years of Disbelief, and it says famous people with the courage to doubt, in which they quote all of the early presidents, starting with Washington, going all the way up through Madison. And these also most of them were involved in writing the Constitution. So I think you had some quotations that indicated that some of these early founding fathers were religious. Do you recall any of those?
Well, and I actually did a little bit of research. Okay. I knew that you might be talking about that today.
Right.
According to this source here, when you add up all the founding fathers,
okay.
I just learned that term really wasn't coined until the early 1900s by Warren Harding. Actually coined the term founding father.
And that intended to include the people who wrote the Constitution? Is that who they said?
Basically, the people that attended the Constitutional Convention,
right.
the people that signed the Declaration of Independence, signed the Articles of Confederation, and it served in the first federal Congress. So,
right. And many of those people then went on to become elected as presidents of the United States. All right.
So when you add up the 204 individuals who make up all of these various groups and the religious affiliation of them, the vast majority were either Episcopals or Anglicans, members of the Anglican Church. You also had about 20% who were Presbyterians, and you had about 17% who were Congregationalists, which is an interesting.
And where those statistics come from? Where?
This comes from a very interesting source called Wikipedia.
Well, my understanding of Wikipedia is that anybody who wants to can contribute to it.
Right.
So it may or may not be a valid source. And I do want to say that the people who want to discredit the church and state separation rely on phony quotations that are circulated. You may know about this by a man named David Barton. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
David Barton,
very familiar with David.
Father of Wall Builders Christian Ministry and author of Original Intent and America's Godly Heritage. He has put out this list of quotations from these founding fathers, none of which was he able to document, and he acknowledged that he couldn't document any of them, but they're still being circulated.
Now, I didn't pick any of his quotations because I would be careful
listen,
to do that.
The ones of those 200 or so people, the ones we know are the ones who got elected to be president. And do you have anything and aside from those numbers you had, my understanding was that the prevailing religious view at that time in the colonies was deism, not theism, which means there may have been some original power that created everything and then he went away.